The drums of Kandara village echoed softly through the warm African night. Firelight danced on the mud huts, while elders sat in a circle telling stories of the ancient spirits of the forest. Beyond the village stood a dark forest. The people called it the Forbidden Green. No hunter dared to enter its deepest paths. But one man was different. His name was Kato, the bravest hunter in the village. His spear was sharp, and his pride was even sharper. Kato believed no spirit could frighten him. One evening, the village elder raised his old hand and warned the hunters, never hunt beyond the red baobab tree. That land belongs to the ancestors. The wind suddenly whispered through the tall grass, but Kato only laughed. The forest fears me, he said proudly. That very night, under a silent moon, Kato walked past the red baobab tree, and deep into the forbidden forest, far away, something ancient slowly opened its eyes. The forest grew darker. The deeper Kato walked, tall trees blocked the moonlight, and the air felt heavy and cold. Strange sounds echoed between the trunks, soft whispers, rustling leaves, and the distant cry of night birds. But Kato held his spear tightly. Suddenly, a large antelope appeared between the trees. Its horns were tall like curved branches, and its eyes shone strangely in the darkness. Kato smiled. A perfect hunt, he whispered. The antelope turned and ran deeper into the forest. Without thinking, Kato chased it through thick vines and tall grass. Soon, the hunter reached a quiet clearing. In the center stood an ancient stone circle covered with glowing symbols. The wind began to swirl around him. The antelope stopped. Slowly, it turned its head toward Kato. Its bright eyes were no longer the eyes of an animal. A deep voice echoed through the trees. You have crossed the sacred path, hunter. Kato's heart pounded as a deep, resonant voice rolled through the dark forest, a sound that seemed to come from the earth itself. He crouched lower behind the ancient oak, his knuckles white around the shaft of his spear. In the clearing ahead, the antelope he had been tracking for hours stepped slowly, almost deliberately, into the center of a ring of muscovade stones. It was an unnatural place, one whispered about in village tales but never visited. The air grew still, heavy with an unspoken power. Then, a cold wind began to spin around the clearing, a silent vortex that started at the edge of the stones and spiraled inward. It didn't howl. It hummed with a low, vibrational frequency that Kato felt in his bones. Dry leaves, long settled on the forest floor, lifted from the ground. They didn't just scatter, they danced, twirling in the air like a host of restless spirits caught in the invisible current. Kato held his breath, the rhythmic thudding of his own heart, the only sound he could register besides that strange, windy hum. And then, something impossible happened. The body of the antelope began to glow. It started as a faint shimmer, a soft luminescence that outlined its form against the deepening twilight. But the light intensified, spreading across its hide, not like a reflection, but like fire burning just beneath the surface, a liquid light flowing underwater. The patterns on its coat pulsed with an ethereal energy, and the clearing was bathed in a soft, otherworldly radiance. Slowly, impossibly, the animal began to change shape. Its form stretched and warped, the solid lines of muscle and bone melting into something new. Its legs grew taller, elongating with a silent grace until they were slender and powerful, like the trunks of youngs. Its neck arched, and its horns, once simple and curved, twisted and branched out, becoming intricate antlers of pure, solid light that cast shifting shadows against the trees. Before Kato, where the simple antelope had stood just moments before, now stood a tall, majestic spirit. It was a being of light and shadow, shining and powerful, its form both solid and ethereal at the same time. Its eyes, where the antelope's dark orbs had been, glowed with the soft, steady light of a full moon. Ancient and all-knowing! The ground beneath Kato's feet trembled softly, a gentle tremor that seemed to acknowledge the presence of this immense power. I am Ninkara, the spirit's voice boomed, the same deep resonance he'd heard before. But now it was clear, right in front of him. The voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. A vibration that shook Kato to his very core. Guardian of this sacred forest. Kato tried to hold his spear steady to maintain the composure of a hunter, but his hands shook uncontrollably. The weapon felt like a child's toy against the sheer majesty of the creature before him. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee this sacred, terrifying place. But his feet were routed to the spot, paralyzed by a mixture of awe and primal fear. This was no mere animal, no creature of flesh and blood he could understand. This was a god, a spirit of the old world. You have hunted where no human may hunt, the spirit continued, its voice a low rumble of judgment, not of anger, but of ancient law. The moonlight eyes seemed to pierce through Kato, seeing not just the man crouching in the shadows, but the intent in his heart, the hunger that had driven him into this forbidden domain. The glowing antlers pulsed with a brighter light, illuminating the entire clearing in a stark silver glow. As if in response to the spirit's words, the darkness beyond the circle of trees began to stir. From the deep blackness between the trunks, a pair of glowing eyes appeared. Then another, and another. Soon, the entire perimeter of the clearing was filled with them. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of pairs of luminous eyes, all fixed on the small, trembling human in their midst. The ancient spirits of the forest, the guardians and watchers of this sacred ground, were all here. They were watching, and Kato knew, with a certainty that chilled him more than any winter wind, that he was utterly, completely alone. His hunt was over, and his trial had just begun. He had trespassed, and now he stood before the judgment of the forest itself. The clearing grew colder as more glowing shapes stepped out from the dark forest. Tall spirits formed from mist, leaves, and pale blue light. Their silent eyes watched Kato. The wind howled through the trees like a warning drum. Inkara raised a glowing hand. Hunter, you have broken the sacred law of the ancestors. Kato swallowed hard. For the first time in his life, fear crept into his proud heart. I only came to hunt, he said weakly. The spirits moved closer. The ground shook beneath their steps. You hunted with pride, Inkara replied. You mocked the elders. You crossed the red baobab without respect. Suddenly, dark clouds covered the moon. The forest roared with anger. In the distance, Kato heard something that chilled his bones. The faint sound of village drums. But the drums were not calling for celebration. They were beating the rhythm of warning. The warning drums echoed through the night, drifting from the distant village. Kato fell to his knees inside the stone circle. The glowing spirits surrounded him like silent shadows. Inkara stepped forward, his tall form shining like pale fire. The ancestors have watched your pride, the spirit said. Now the forest must decide your fate. The wind rose fiercely. Leaves and dust swirled around Kato as the spirits lifted their glowing hands toward the sky. Suddenly, the ground opened slightly beneath the hunter's feet. From the darkness below came whispers, old voices, ancient and powerful. Kato's heart filled with terror. I was wrong, he cried. Great spirits, forgive me. I did not respect the sacred land. For a long moment, the forest grew silent. Even the wind stopped moving. Then the ancient voices spoke together, deep like thunder. The hunter may live, but he must carry our lesson. Ancient voices faded into the night. The glowing spirits slowly stepped back, and the wind became gentle again. Inkara looked down at Kato, whose head was still bowed to the ground. You will live, the spirit said quietly, but you will never hunt in this forest again. Suddenly, a bright light surrounded the hunter. The forest spun around him like a great storm. When the light disappeared, Kato found himself lying beside the red baobab tree at the edge of the village lands. The morning sun was rising over the savannah. Birds sang softly in the warm air. Kato stood slowly and looked back at the silent forest. His proud heart had changed. That evening, he told the villagers everything. From that day forward, the hunters respected the sacred forest. For those who ignore wisdom and respect, even the earth and spirits will rise to teach them.